People buy from people. People do not buy from brands. Hi guys, welcome to my channel, and my name is Gabrielle Verray, and I am the founder of Design with a Purpose digital marketing agency, where we help kingdom entrepreneurs create and sell successful digital products organically. So in today's video, I'm going to be discussing with you guys personal branding and business. So before we even jump into just kind of talking about how this relates to business, first I want to just talk about what is personal branding. So for those of you who've worked in the corporate space, or maybe you've taken a LinkedIn training, or you probably have even heard from just some marketing gurus, you've heard that word personal branding just kind of tossed around. I know for myself, when working in corporate, I heard that all the time, to the point where there were trainings that I had to take and just understand what personal branding is. And so by definition, personal branding is essentially what you are known for, right? It is how people view you. It is what comes to mind when people hear your name. It is essentially your reputation, right? And so when we're thinking about just from, a corporate environment or workplace environment, it is how people know you. It is how people receive you, right? Personal branding also goes beyond just the workplace, but it also plays a role and a factor in just your circle, right? Just, how you interact with people. Each and every single one of us have a personal brand, regardless if, we have used that word or not. Each and every single one of us do. So when your name comes up to your friends, there's usually something that comes to mind when people hear your name. So just like you have a brand in the workplace, you also have a brand when it comes to business, okay? So businesses have brands. And so by definition, let's just kind of look at what brand means. So a brand by definition is a product or service that has a unique and immediately recognizable identity that distinguishes itself from others in its industry. So as a business owner, your brand is your business identity, right? So your business branding is essentially what sets you apart from others that are in your industry. So I want you to just kind of hang on to that, okay? Here at Design with a Purpose, what we do is we believe that your identity in Christ is essentially your personal brand. It is how God created you before the foundation of this world, right? So let's look at just kind of how it is just from a kingdom perspective. So when we think of kingdom and biblical perspective, we know that each and every single one of us have been given a personal identity, right? A personal identity in, who God says you are, right? If you've been called to the marketplace, that is part of your identity as an entrepreneur. And even within, being an entrepreneur, there's something that's unique and distinct about you, right? Because God says in his word that he has made each and every single one of us fearfully and wonderfully made, that he created the innermost parts of us, right? He knows every single thing about us. But even within that, there has been something that is distinct to you. One of the verses that comes to mind is Jeremiah, where it talks about, basically, I knew you before you were ever even in your mother's womb. And he says that he ordained him as a prophet, and him being a prophet was part of his identity, right? And so for those of you who have been called to the marketplace as entrepreneurs, part of your identity is entrepreneurship. But within that entrepreneurship, there is something that makes you stand out from others that's within your industry. Something that, God has placed inside of you that will make you highlight you, right? As someone that is distinct, someone that is different from the rest of the crowd. So when it comes to creating any business as a kingdom entrepreneur, and guys, honestly, this is just any business in general, you always want to make sure that you have branding. So when we think about identity is essentially personal, right? It is what's unique about you. It is what sets you apart from others. And guys, this applies to business as well. And so when we talk about, just what a brand is something that sets you apart from other other people, right? So within a brand, you usually will have, your messaging, you will have your core values, you will have, the aesthetic, right, of how you want, your mood board to be, your branding in terms of color, in terms of logo, in terms of design, right? But all of these things work together to create your brand. All of these things work together so that it helps others decipher between you and another brand, right? So even when we kind of just think about, brands in general, one of the brands that kind of comes to mind is Chick-fil-A. So for many of us who have eaten at Chick-fil-A, Chick-fil-A has built a brand. Chick-fil-A has built a brand around core values of being off, on Sundays as, that day of keeping the Sabbath for them, right? They've built the core value around great customer service. So we know that when we see that Chick-fil-A sign or that logo pop up, or even just driving past Chick-fil-A, we know that, okay, that's Chick-fil-A, right? Because we see the colors, but we also know that when we go through that driveway or that drive-through, we know that what to expect. We know that we are expecting for great customer service, right? Because they have put that as part of their brand identity. They have put that as part of their personal branding, right? And so with that is all attached. Their messaging is around customer service, right? Even when you get an order, right? They make sure to thank you for the order, right? They make sure to go above and beyond with their service because they know that that's what sets them apart from other fast food restaurants that are within the industry. And so I want you to kind of think about that, right? So you are your brand, right? But within that, there's something that is distinct about you. So now it's just a matter of taking what's distinct about you and transferring that over into whatever business that God has told you to create. So when starting a business, branding is important, right? It is the identification factor for your business. It is what establishes your name in whatever industry or territory that God has given you. And so when we think about even just biblically, like in Proverbs, it talks about having just reputation in general. So let's just kind of talk about that. So it says in Proverbs 22:1, it states, a good name is to be chosen over great wealth. So essentially your reputation is more valuable than even the amount of money that you make. Because people see, when we think of business, and you being the brand for your business, it is important that you establish a great reputation. I know that there's many of us who have probably experienced a situation where, you've bought something from a place and you had a bad experience, right? Or maybe you have asked someone, about a brand and someone has said, don't buy from that brand because they experienced this or that, right? That is their reputation, right? It is how people view them, right? And so when you are establishing a brand, you want to make sure that you're building up a great reputation, because when you have a great reputation, essentially what's going to happen is people are going to want to buy from you, right? People buy from people. People don't buy from a brand just because they see a color or a logo on there. This is why we see influencers. This is why we see big brands hiring, influencers to advertise their products, because what they're doing is they're building their brand, right? They're building that reputation by way of influencers. So just like you want your reputation to be deemed as great just in your everyday life, you also want your business brand to be seen as great as well, right? You want your reputation in business to be great, right? And the fact that it even highlights that in Proverbs, which we know that Proverbs is all about wisdom, this is something that you want to make sure that you embed in your business, okay? When it comes to personal branding, number one, it sets you apart from your competitors, as mentioned earlier, but it sets you apart in your industry. In Ecclesiastes 1:9, it says, what has been will begin, and what has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. So essentially, there are plenty of people that have most likely, came up with the idea that you have, or have been given, a similar assignment, right? But the thing is, although there are many people that have either created something that you are creating, or maybe they are about to create something that you're wanting to create, the thing is that just by you tapping into your personal identity in Christ, right? You tapping and you using that in your business branding, what you are doing is you're setting yourself apart from others that are in your industry. We can even look at this when it comes to just toilet paper, right? If we go to a grocery store right now, we will see multiple different toilet paper brands, right? But that doesn't stop someone else from, coming out with another toilet paper brand, because the reality is, although we might see 5, 7, 10 different toilet paper brands, each of them are distinct, right? So you have one that might be more softer. You have one that might be lower in price point. You have one that might be heavier in terms of just the different layers of the tissue, right? So although we see these different brands, and although there are different, different toilet paper brands that are in the store, the reason why each and every single one of them sell is because they have built a reputation around what their brand is known for, right? They have a brand identity. They have a business identity. And as you starting your business, right, as a kingdom entrepreneur, and even as an entrepreneur in general, you have a brand identity, and your identity is your personal identity in Christ. So, when God tells us to create a business, he's telling us that because that is a part of our identity, but he also wants us to include in that because that's what makes us unique, and that's what sets us apart from others. Number 2, it attracts the right customers to you. So when it comes to having a personal brand, and when it comes to just, basically your brand identity, when you have that established, your messaging is established, right? You know who your audience is, right? You know who you should be selling to. You know what the price point should be, right? You know who you should market to, right? Because the thing is, every single business has a particular audience that they should be targeting, right? If you're trying to sell to everyone, I'm sure a lot of us have heard this. If you're trying to sell to everyone, then you're trying to sell to no one. Because even if we want to look at this from a biblical, perspective, there are people that are tied to your business. There are customers that are tied to that product that you are creating. There are, people that are tied to that service that you are offering in your business. Because if God gave you the idea, then there must be a need for it. If there's a need for it, then there are people that need that here, in the earth. So when we think about this from, just that standpoint, each and every one of you have people that have been distinctly attached to your calling and your assignment. And in entrepreneurship is a calling. Marketplace is a calling, right? A specific target audience of people who need what you are selling. They need what you are selling, right? There's someone that is waiting to purchase that course or that ebook or whatever digital product or service that you're offering. There's someone that's waiting to purchase that from you, right? So think of the people that's attached to your calling as your target audience, basically. Your uniqueness in business will attract the people that God has assigned to you, right? It will attract the people that you need to help within your business. Guys, we have to have this servant mindset that when we are even in the marketplace, that even when we are serving others, that essentially we are serving people to help them, right? So your service or your product is helping someone else, right? And so your uniqueness will bring the right customers to you, right? And this is why it's important as well that, when it comes to establishing a business or selling products in any form or, in any capacity, that you know who you will be targeting. You know the foundation of your business. You know who you are. You know what your business stands for, right? This goes back to brand identity. Because when you know this, you don't have to feel the need to mimic others, right? Because this is why what you'll find is that when people start mimicking and doing other things, they start to just be all over the place, right? Because they don't have an identity. They don't have a brand identity. They're just all over the place. So their messaging is all over the place. It's lack of clarity, right? There's no vision, no clear vision of who they're targeting. Number 3, it creates relationships and trust with your customers. Guys, when it comes to purchasing and buying, the trust factor is so critical in the buying process, guys. It usually takes over a certain amount of time for a customer to eventually convert from a lead to an actual buyer. Why? Because there's trust that needs to be built. There's relationship that needs to be built, right? So when you build a brand around the core values you have established in your business, a relationship is formed with your clients. People begin to notice, oh, this is what this brand offers. That resonates with me. Example, let's say you are creating a digital product that's teaching people how to steward their finances. And maybe there's something that's distinct about you because you have a story around how, God helped you get out of debt. And now you're wanting to help others, right? But maybe your story is so distinct and it resonates with, that person that's on the other side. Maybe they had a similar situation where they've been in debt, and maybe in your story you talk about how God's helped you get out of debt and you were able to purchase a house. And maybe that other person, maybe that person on the side of social media is, trying to purchase a house. And so now they're able to resonate with you because now they're identifying with your personal story. Even down to how you market your services, guys, is also part of your brand identity. So, if you know that you are someone that, loves being in front of the camera, or maybe you love talking, guys, that's going to draw more people to you, right? But you're going to draw the right people to you because your personality is going to show even in your marketing, even by the way that you speak, right? So there are particular people that are assigned to the product or service or business and business that you have been assigned to create, right? Relationships, they require trust. And as you build your brand, people will begin to know your core values, and over time trust will be built, and as trust is built, then your customer base will grow. So one of the stories that show a great example of just branding in the Bible is King Solomon. So in 1 Kings 10 it says, when the Queen of Sheba had heard of Solomon's fame, which brought honor to the name of the Lord, she came to test him with hard questions. So guys, the word that stood out to me in this verse is fame. So fame by definition means renown or reputation. So renown or reputation, essentially it goes back to what I was stating earlier. Your branding is your reputation. Your brand identity is your reputation, right? And so here we have the Queen of Sheba. She had heard about King Solomon, right? She had heard about his fame. She had heard about, his reputation, right? And that it brought honor to the Lord. And so that made her come to visit him. That made her, come to test his knowledge and to, gain more wisdom, or to gain wisdom from him, right? And because of his reputation, it made him, it made other royal leaders and just, people want to come and learn from him. And eventually she paid him, right? She paid him for his wisdom that he gave her. And so that is the same thing, guys, with us. The Bible is full of biblical principles, right? And so that's the same thing just when it comes to business branding. Solomon was the brand, right? He honored the Lord, right? It's the same thing, guys, that's with us, every single one of us, right? It is our reputation. It is our brand. We are the brand. And so because you're part of the business and this business is attached to you, the brand is you, right? The brand is your brand identity and reputation, okay? And so let's kind of talk about what personal branding and, how personal branding and digital products work together. Because you're probably thinking, okay, personal branding, how does this work? When it comes to just selling digital products and services, or really just anything you do, your brand is part of the creating of your products. Your brand is part of the marketing of your products, right? The goal is to ultimately, have a brand that is personable, have a brand that is relatable. Because going back to what I mentioned earlier, people buy from people. People do not buy from brands. So when you're able to shift that perspective that they're not buying from just a business, but they're buying from something that's relatable, something that touches them, it shifts from, this is just another business that I'm buying from, right? We see influencers that are, promoting different businesses for people, because what it's doing is it's offering that relatability for people, right? And so when you are establishing your brand, what it also does, it offers comfortability. It offers comfortability to your audience, because people can become more comfortable to you, right? They're not feeling like that you're just selling them something because it's just a business, but they're feeling like that you're selling something to them because in your brand identity, you have made it relatable. You have made it personable. You have made it to where they feel like you want to help them and that you're just not after their money, right? As you create your digital products, you want to make sure that you have established or are creating a brand. You want to make sure that you're creating a brand, right? Because as you build a brand, then you will become more known. Your reputation will be built and people will purchase from you. So guys, your branding should even be, implemented in your products. It should be implemented in your marketing and everything. Okay. When it comes to building a brand, a couple of things to ask yourself is, what do I want my business to be known for? How do I want others to perceive me? How do I want to stand out from others that are within my industry? What's unique about my business that God has shown me, right? What is it that God wants me to do, right? Who's my target audience? What is it that they need, right? And then as you determine these different things, you can kind of jot this down on a piece of paper, and then this will help you to begin to start establishing your brand messaging, right? And then even in the distinct part, in the uniqueness of, just your business branding, what does this look like visually, right? So you can start determining, how you want your brand to be perceived by others. What is the identity in your business? What's something that's personable, to you as far as your personal identity, and how can this be implemented in your business, right? When it comes to knowing your identity in business, and just having a personal brand or brand identity, it makes it easier to sell. It makes it easier to market your business. Because if not, guys, you'll be all over the place because you don't know who you are. Without an identity, you don't know who you are, right? And that's just in general, right? And the same thing, it's the same thing in business. If you know that you're wanting to sell a digital product, if you know that God has given you a vision of, to sell a digital product, whether that be through an online course, an ebook, whatever capacity that is, right? It could be a PDF, whatever it is that God has told you to do, right? If God has placed that on your heart, and you're wanting to include that in your business, or maybe you're a new business owner and you're like, I don't even know how to get started, right? Whatever it is, if you don't know how to get started, you don't know about personal branding, you're not sure how to establish a brand or a brand identity, guys, that is what myself and my team do. We help entrepreneurs like you basically create and sell successful digital products, but we help you do it in an organic way. So if that sounds like you, click the link below to schedule a call so that we can chat about your vision. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you on the next video.